I knew something was off the moment I saw both danishes on the boardroom tray untouched. Nobody at Hartford and Goldstein skips the cherry ones unless something nuclear is about to go down. And sure enough, my father cleared his throat with that smug little wheeze of his. The one he uses when he's about to shove a knife in with a handshake. "We'd like to congratulate Tyler on becoming our newest partner," he said. He was announcing a gender reveal for a baby goat. Silence. The kind that stretches like old gum under a diner booth. Tyler, the same Tyler who once accidentally emailed a client asking if they wanted hookers or hookups for the Vegas conference, flashed his capped smile like a quarterback with CTE and no clue where he was. He stood up too fast, hit his knee on the damn conference table, and still said, "Wow, honored beyond honored, Pops. Pops." This was a little league trophy and not the culmination of 14 years of me dragging this family firm across glass and fire. My father glanced toward me like he expected a standing ovation. "This isn't just about the now, sweetheart. It's about the future. Family legacy. Next generation leadership." Words so hollow they echoed inside my ribcage. Legacy, right? If you're still here, and I know 95% of y'all are lurking without subscribing, help a girl out. I'm trying to hit my first ever 10,000 subs and it would mean the damn world. You get more chaos, more stories, and I get to keep flipping the bird to nepotism in style. Anyway, I didn't flinch, didn't cry. I stood up so calmly even the walls felt embarrassed. Walked over to my idiot brother, stuck out my hand, and gave him a handshake so deliberate, so firm, I felt the tiny bones in his fingers crackle like stale pretzels. Fake grin twitched just for a second, and I leaned in close. "Congrats, partner," I whispered. "Hope you can remember which clients you still owe apologies to." I stopped keeping the list after 40. He chuckled, but it came out strained. Everyone laughed nervously. My father was already launching into some garbage about succession plans and Tyler's modern vision. Like, this place wasn't built on my blood, insomnia, and caffeine-induced arrhythmias. I turned and walked out. No drama, no raised voices, just the click of my heels on that overpriced marble tile and a glance. Just one at the wall of framed awards by the elevators. 46 of them. 39 had my name somewhere on the submission paperwork, but I wasn't even a partner. I paused, took a breath. The elevator arrived. I stepped in alone. And for the first time in 14 years, I didn't hit B2 client archives like muscle memory. I hit lobby. That was the moment I quit. Not with an email, not with a screaming match, but with silence. The kind that roars louder than any resignation letter ever could. I didn't cry in the elevator. That would have given them too much credit. I didn't rage smash a Starbucks cup or text my therapist either. I went home, pulled into my driveway like it was any other Thursday, and sat in my car for 10 minutes watching a squirrel try to fist fight a plastic flamingo in my neighbor's yard. Somehow, that made more sense than what had just happened. Inside, the air felt still, like even the furniture was waiting to see if I'd scream. I didn't. I walked past the kitchen, past the stack of mail that still had my dad's dumb holiday newsletter unopened, and went straight to my desk. At the kitchen table, not the couch, the desk, the one I bought after closing our firm's biggest account, the one I assembled myself because Tyler couldn't be bothered to help and claimed dire gluten poisoning from a bagel. I sat down, opened LinkedIn, and I didn't post a long dramatic manifesto. No passive-aggressive #new beginnings crap. No vague I'm choosing myself rant. Just 4 words in a quiet little update box. Exploring new opportunities. Was it? But those 4 words hit like a bullet wrapped in silk. Within 20 minutes, my phone buzzed with a notification from someone at Dreyfus in Sloan. Then another. By the time I microwaved some leftover kung pao chicken and changed into my "I'm fine. This is fine" sweatpants. 3 different recruiters had messaged me. One even sent a bouquet of virtual flowers with the message, "Been waiting for this day." Pathetic how much that felt like closure. Around 7:30, I opened a bottle of wine that had been sitting unopened since the night. I pulled my 3rd all-nighter trying to fix the fallout from Tyler's shipping invoice screw-up. He'd entered the wrong port code and accidentally rerouted $40 million worth of equipment to the wrong hemisphere. I covered for him, ate the blame. took the call from the client at 2 a.m. and promised it wouldn't happen again. It did 3 times, but I always cleaned it up like some loyalty-sick janitor with a Harvard degree and a broken back. I skipped every vacation, worked Christmas Eve, let my ex walk away because I couldn't leave a strategy session early enough to get to dinner on time. My 20s gone, my 30s, blurred behind spreadsheets, red-eye flights, and boardrooms full of men who only ever looked at my chest or my client list. I poured the wine, sat on the couch, let silence hug me like a weighted blanket stitched from every unpaid emotional debt I'd carried for 14 years. That's when I saw it. A message notification. Is this a joke? It was from Lydia, executive assistant to the CEO of Stratwood Logistics, our crown jewel client. The one I personally courted, negotiated, secured, and sustained through 5 years of economic turbulence, tariff wars, and pandemic chaos. Lydia never messaged casually. Texts were emergencies, scheduling, or 6-word scoldings about missed meetings. I stared at her message. Is this a joke? That's when it hit me. They didn't know. The firm hadn't told anyone I was gone. No announcement. No transition. Just shoved me out the side door while the champagne cooled for Tyler in the main hall. I took a slow sip of wine and let the moment settle in my chest like cooled lava. No, Lydia, it's not a joke. But it's about to be Friday morning, 8:12 a.m. somewhere between his grapefruit half and his second black coffee. My father got the call. He still used that old landline on the kitchen counter, the one with the coiled cord that stretched halfway across the room whenever my mother called about church potlucks or dead raccoons in the pool filter. He always answered it the same way. This is Richard. He was about to close a Cold War arms deal instead of being a man who once cried because the dry cleaner shrunk his favorite polo. Across the table, Tyler was already slathering his toast with almond butter and narcissism, wearing a branded fleece vest he didn't earn, and reading headlines he didn't understand. The morning light coming through the window probably made them both look like a Norman Rockwell painting of business fraud and cholesterol. And came the pause, a long taut silence that sliced clean through the smell of burnt toast and entitlement. My father's face went tight, eyebrows drawn, lips flat, like someone had just whispered a slur in Latin. He held the phone away from his ear for a second like it had burned him. Then the words low, choked. What do you mean pulling out? Tyler's chewing slowed. His fork hovered mid-air. Stratwood? My father asked, tone half prayer, half accusation. The other end of the line was Alan Hemsworth, CEO of Stratwood Logistics. A man whose handshake could freeze oceans and who once ended a $30 million merger mid-meeting because someone mispronounced logistical redundancy. Alan didn't bluff. Alan didn't explain. And what Alan said that morning with the vocal warmth of a wood chipper was this. We're pulling out just that. 3 words. Nuclear grade. My father tried to stammer something. Asked if they could set up a call, a review, maybe bring in a transitional team, but the line was already dead. I wasn't there, but I can picture it perfectly. Tyler fumbling with his iPad, frantically Googling Stratwood CEO name like it was some niche bar trivia. Dad yelling into the void. Call Maggie no. Call legal. What the hell is going on? Meanwhile, I was sitting at my kitchen counter in leggings, sipping my coffee with oat milk, scrolling through a gentle blizzard of new LinkedIn messages. People I hadn't spoken to in years. Saw your update. Would love to catch up. Didn't know you were leaving. How fast can we talk? Then came the one that mattered. A buzz. A message from an unknown number. But I knew the tone. Alan Hemsworth. Lunch. No context. No signature. Just that one word. I stared at it for a few seconds. Thumb hovering over the screen. I could feel the tectonic plates of power shifting beneath me. Not just validation. Leverage. Kind of leverage I'd never be given in that old boys club firm. No matter how many million-dollar deals I closed or how many fires I put out with my bare hands and a metaphorical garden hose soaked in tears, I didn't reply immediately. Let him sweat. Let them all sweat. Instead, I walked to my closet, pulled out the blazer I'd reserved for board presentations and burials, and hung it on the back of my chair. Lunch was going to be enlightening. Met at Turn and Pike, that overpriced downtown place where CEOs pretend to enjoy microgreens while plotting hostile takeovers. Alan Hemsworth was already seated when I walked in, pressed navy suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up just enough to make you think he might strangle someone before dessert. He stood as I approached, but didn't offer a handshake. That wasn't Alan's style. Handshakes were for deals, not preludes. "You look well," he said wasn't a compliment. It was an observation, like a field report on enemy movements. I sat, waited. He didn't waste time. "I'm not here for sales pitch," he said, pushing the menu aside like it had insulted his lineage. "I'm here because I don't do business with children in suits." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean Tyler?" He gave a humorless smile. "I mean, your brother." I gave him 5 minutes on a call, opened with a sports analogy, and then asked if we had any brand synergy initiatives. "I don't know what that means and I don't care. I built my company on precision. Your family firm used to be precise because of you." He reached into his jacket pocket and slid a folded sheet across the table. I unfolded it. A preliminary term sheet. Compensation. Equity stake. First year operating budget. My name already typed in the header. Blueprint for something entirely new. Start fresh. Alan said, "Bring your brain, your instincts, your spine, and we'll follow." I stared at the numbers. I'd never even made half of what he was offering. But it wasn't just about money. It was the implicit truth behind the offer. I was the product. I was the value. Tyler, my father, they were just middlemen bloated on my labor. I leaned back, heartbeat steady. "You're assuming others will follow." He didn't blink. "They already are." Alan sipped his espresso like it was blood. "I've heard from Jennings, Carter, and Doyle. Tracer One, even Lexam Capital. They've all had concerns. Rebranding strategy drift. Someone accidentally sending an internal memo calling a client a cranky dinosaur. Ring a bell, Tyler. Of course. So Alan continued, "The question isn't whether we move. The question is whether you lead." I felt like I was hovering above my own body. Somewhere deep inside me, familiar heat stirred. Not rage this time, not even resentment. Something colder. Heavier. Like standing on the edge of a frozen lake with a sledgehammer in one hand and your old house sinking beneath the ice. "Give me a week," I said. Alan nodded once, stood up, and left without shaking my hand. Again, not a deal yet. The check was already paid. Of course, it was. I walked out of Turn and Pike and let the city noise wash over me. Car horns, heels on pavement, someone shouting into a phone about missed deliverables. For a moment, I just stood there in the middle of it all, watching the sun bounce off glass towers that looked shinier than they were solid. When I got home, I sat on the couch and opened my phone. One by one, I started deleting contacts from the firm, advisors, junior partners, legacy clients who hadn't replied to a single thank you note in years. Gone, gone, gone. But when I got to Lydia's name, I paused. I added a star next to it. Some ties don't get severed. They become anchors. They always say ships sink slow. Not this one. Hartford and Goldstein didn't spring a leak. They nosedived like a flaming Tesla off a cliff the moment I walked out that door. The first tremor hit Monday morning, buried in a finance blog. Nobody under 50 reads, unless they're mid-divorce and need market gossip to feel something. Anonymous source inside H&G claimed internal shifts had led Stratwood to reassess vendor relationships. Translation. Someone lit the house on fire and then told reporters it was just the candles. But it didn't stop there. By Wednesday, an H&G junior analyst, some poor kid barely out of business school, accidentally forwarded a client-wide summary to a Slack channel labeled All Staff, contained a bulleted list titled Clients who requested Maggie's contact info. 4 names, 4, not just Stratwood, but Tracer One, Carter and Doyle, and my personal favorite, Lexam Capital, who once told me I was too aggressive in negotiations, then begged me to rework their M and a deal at midnight while Tyler was in Aspen networking at a vodka-sponsored luge event. The leak was screen-capped, reposted, and inevitably emailed to the Wall Street Pulse. Within 12 hours, the firm's LinkedIn page was flooded with comments asking if a restructuring was happening. One commenter even posted, "Is this what happens when you promote the intern with the best hair?" Tyler, ever the golden retriever with a lobotomy, panicked and went full damage control. He posted a firm-wide PR statement that read like ChatGPT's evil twin wrote it, while vaping Monster Energy started with "In these uncertain economic times, market turbulence and global realignments require adaptive resilient vision," and ended with "We remain committed to legacy and forward-thinking partnership building despite some regrettable transitions." Regrettable transitions. I read it while sipping green tea from a mug that said "World's okayest daughter" and laughed so hard I almost choked. Legacy. That word again. We're still clinging to it like it was a lifeboat instead of the anchor that was dragging them under. Meanwhile, Alan Hemsworth and I weren't just having lunch anymore. We were drawing battle lines. We met again in his office. This time, no espresso, no small talk, just papers, contracts, real numbers. I was given a founder stake, autonomy, full creative and operational control. We picked a name and settled on a tight agile team built around actual skill, not bloodlines and golf buddies. The new shop would focus on strategic crisis re-engineering, the kind of work I was already doing at H&G, but now I'd get the credit and the profits. Alan handed me a pen, silver and heavy, probably stolen from a CEO summit somewhere. "You sure?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. They built a glass house on my foundation. "Alan, now they're surprised it shatters every time someone breathes on it." I signed. And just like that, I wasn't the daughter anymore. Wasn't the fixer in the shadows. Wasn't the apology email at 10:03 a.m. I was the architect. The storm. When I left Alan's office that day, the sky broke open with a flash summer downpour. Most people ran for cover. I walked right into it. Corporate betrayals never bleed like movies. There's no slow motion yelling. "Oh, glass shattering. You'll regret this." It happens in silence, in red lines, blind carbon copies, and carefully worded subject lines. And I was about to orchestrate my own little coup to finesse. I hired a lawyer who wore tortoiselle glasses and spoke like every sentence was a chess move. Clara Simmons, ex-regulatory, ex-Securities Commission, and rumored to have buried 3 hedge fund lawsuits in less time than it takes to bake banana bread. She reviewed my old contract like it was a confession. "You're clean," she said after an hour. "No enforceable non-competes. No solicitation clause, but only for 12-month window and only direct contact. If they come to you unprompted, that's not poaching. That's gravity." I grinned and the NDA. Clara smirked. "Void the moment they promoted your brother without equitable process. You weren't consulted. They breached internal policy. Their mistake. 14 years of tight-lipped loyalty undone in a single misstep by a man who still used Comic Sans and PowerPoint. But the real bloodletting came a week later. While organizing legacy files for our new boutique firm, I reviewed several compliance documents tied to Lexam Capital's queue for restructure. Tyler had supposedly closed that file after I left, but someone had overwritten my work. Sloppily, wrong invoice codes, mismatched timestamps. Worst of all, a signature. My signature on an amended compliance memo I never wrote. Forged and not well. The G and Maggie looped the wrong way like it was drawn by a bored frat boy mimicking cursive. That idiot couldn't even fake my name right. I triple-checked. PDF Maratha showed it was modified from Tyler's account. Sloppy, careless, dumb, and illegal. For a moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. This was no longer just about stolen promotions or broken promises. This was about rot. Institutional decay wrapped in a family crest. I opened a new email account. No name, no tags, just a dead drop-in box that forwarded to H&GTS internal legal team. Attached the doctor document. Highlighted the metadata. No commentary, no explanation. Subject line due diligence. I sent it, then closed the laptop. Fallout wouldn't be instant, but it would be loud. The kind of revelation that sets off chain reactions in firms held together by illusion and holiday newsletters. By the next morning, internal murmurs were already leaking. LinkedIn recruiters messaged asking if I knew what's happening over there. Someone from a rival firm posted a vague tweet. Always fascinating to watch a legacy brand forget what integrity tastes like. Lara texted me one line. They'll investigate quietly but thoroughly. Good. Let them let the board stew in it. Let the senior partners whisper in parking garages and country clubs. Let them start wondering how many other papers Tyler touched. I didn't need to expose him. I just needed to nudge. Public trust doesn't die in fire. It dies in doubt. It started with a LinkedIn post from Carter and Doyle's former VP of Ops. Just a harmless little congrats to Maggie R for her bold new venture. Vision like hers doesn't stay boxed in. No hashtags, no hard pitch, but the comments were like termites in a load-bearing wall, long overdue. She's the reason we renewed in 21. Best strategist I've worked with, period. And then quietly, the real brain at H&G. No one tagged Tyler. No one mentioned the firm. The message spread like wildfire through whisper networks, the sacred unspoken channels that power every boardroom and backdoor handshake in finance texts, Slack DMs, airport lounge chats between consultants with platinum MXs and dead eyes. By the end of the week, I wasn't just Maggie from Hartford and Goldstein. I was Maggie Reynolds, founder, the woman who walked out of the family firm and made something better. Barely updated my own website when the emails began flooding in. Executive assistants, former interns, even a retired M and a shark from Buenos Aires who wrote, "I always said you were the only one in that circus worth a damn. Can we talk?" Confidence grew quietly. Not the brash, chest-thumping kind Tyler flaunted like cologne. Mine settled in the bones. It was a knowing. Like a dam holding back, a river had finally cracked in the right direction. Came the calls. 3 missed ones from him, my father. Each came in at odd times. First at 7:14 a.m. like he thought he could catch me before my coffee made me ruthless. Then again at 12:02 p.m. A final one at 9:37 p.m. Just late enough to imply fatherly concern, but early enough that I couldn't accuse him of panic. I didn't answer. I stared at my screen each time, thumb hovering over decline. And each time let it ring out because what would he say? That he was proud of me. That he made a mistake. That he now realized Tyler couldn't find his own ass with both hands and a GPS too little, too late. But grief still crept in uninvited. Not for him, for what could have been for the version of this story where he saw my worth before the market had to scream it at him. That night, Clara called. "Pack something sharp," she said. "Excuse me. Been invited to the Valencia Summit." I nearly dropped my phone. The Valencia Finance Leadership Summit wasn't just an event. It was the event. 3 days, black-tie dinners, fireside panels. The kind of place where generational wealth kisses up to generational strategy. I wasn't just attending. I was the closing keynote. My session title, "When Legacy Fails, Building New Empires from Broken Blueprints." I laughed. It echoed too long in the empty house. Girl who used to file her brother's compliance reports in silence was now headlining an event that used to blacklist people like me. I closed my laptop, poured 1 glass of scotch, sat by the window, and watched the city blink and breathe. Let them whisper. I'd become the headline. The Valencia Summit Gala was held at the Orpheus Grand, a glass monstrosity that looked like a luxury spaceship parked in the middle of downtown. Every chandelier cost more than my first salary, and the valet line included at least 3 Aston Martins. It was the kind of event where legacy firms go to pin, polish, and politely pat each other on the back while the industry pretends not to be bleeding from the inside. Hartford and Goldstein was being honored for legacy impact. There it was printed right on the program in embossed serif font like a eulogy pretending to be a compliment underneath. Richard Goldstein, founder, and Tyler Goldstein, partner. My stomach didn't churn. I'd long since stopped giving my body the luxury of protest. I walked in from the side entrance. Not with the crowd, not through the press rope. I wasn't a guest. I was keynote. No table assignment, no name badge, just a silver MIC waiting for me after dessert like a dagger sheathed in white linen. They seated H&G at table 4, front center, facing the stage, caught them out of the corner of my eye as I stood in the wings. My father wore his usual navy suit with that burgundy tie he thought screamed gravitas. Tyler looked stiff, underdressed, and overcompensating. He kept checking his watch, unaware that time had already abandoned him. When the MC called my name, The room shifted, chairs turned, heads swiveled. A few gasps slipped through lipstick smiles. Please welcome our closing speaker, founder and CEO of Reynolds Strategic Group, Maggie Reynolds. The applause was polite, almost uncertain. That's what happens when the room's not sure if you're here to bless or bury them. I took the stage slowly, letting the weight of heels and silence settle into the carpet. I looked out at the sea of sequins, cufflinks, and false memories. Then I began. I want to talk about vision, not the kind you put in pitch decks. I mean, the kind you bury, the kind that gets overlooked, underestimated, edited out of company bias, and passed off as someone else's intuition. No names, just wounds with clean edges. Sometimes vision is stolen. Sometimes it's inherited by people who can't carry it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, vision gets reclaimed. I didn't pace. I didn't raise my voice. I let the words cut on their own. Quiet blades slip deeper. Told the story of a strategist who spent years inside a firm she didn't own, building futures she never got credit for. I spoke of boardrooms where her ideas became someone else's promotions. I described loyalty weaponized as silence. I didn't need to say who it was. The whole damn room knew. And then I looked at table 4, right at my father. His face had drained of color, lips pursed like he was sucking regret through a straw. Tyler stared at the floor. Even his ego had gone mute. I finished with one line, the one I'd been holding like a sword behind my teeth for over a decade. Never underestimate the one you took for granted. Silence, then applause. Slow at first, then a wave. Not for the speech, but for the truth. The room rose to its feet. Even some of their peers clapped. People who'd once signed me at fundraisers, now leaning into the fall of a dynasty. As I stepped off the stage, woman from a global consulting group whispered, "You just slit their throat in 10 inches heels." I smiled. No, I just reminded them who held the knife the whole time. I didn't stay long after the applause. Let them buzz. Let them whisper. I walked straight past the flashbulbs and hollow smiles, past 3 VPs who suddenly remembered my name, and into the rooftop lounge where the real deals always happened. Not that I needed one. I'd already made mine. How I was just there to toast the ashes. He found me near the balcony. Miles Kessler, once my intern, now VP at Fielder and Rhine. He'd been 22, eager, and painfully allergic to gluten and confrontation when he first started. Now he wore confidence like armor and carried a client portfolio that could fund a small nation. He lifted his glass of something overpriced and amber. "They're finished, huh?" I didn't answer right away. Just let the skyline shimmer behind us while a string quartet inside played something delicate and ironic. Then I raised my own glass and tapped his gently. They were finished the moment they mistook loyalty for weakness. Miles laughed. "Your brother's already trending on industry Twitter." Someone posted a clip of his market turbulent speech with clown horns dubbed in. I smiled but didn't gloat. Not out loud. That kind of triumph needed to stay cold to burn right. Meanwhile, across town in the same pan-led office where my father once told me to be patient. He sat alone replaying a voicemail on speaker for the 5th time. "Richard, this is Alan Hemsworth. Just wanted to make it official. We're pulling out. No hard feelings. Business is business." His assistant had quit that morning. 3 junior staffers followed. The firm's legal team requested a meeting with the board. He was starting to see the cracks, not the ones in the structure. In the silence, the kind of cracks that let rot seep through. Back in my suite, I kicked off my heels, poured a glass of water, and opened my inbox. There it was. Subject line: Q3 earnings report. Reynolds Strategic Group. I clicked. We'd officially surpassed Hartford and Goldstein's quarterly revenue by 7% with a third of the staff and none of the legacy drag. The number sat there on the screen glowing like a lighthouse built on the bones of an old shipwreck. I took a breath, calm, measured. Then I hit forward, typed in my father's address. Subject line: your legacy, my rules, and click send. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch flicking drama.